want to extend a warm welcome to all the members and guests who have joined us for the first time in a long time in person. I don't know when the last time was we had a full board meeting in the same room. And this may be, I'm not certain, I don't remember the first full board meeting that we've had in this room. Okay, terrific. See, I'm pretty good.
You are very good at it.
Several preliminary things, the most important of which is to thank each of you all for joining us last night at the Capitol Grill. That was one of the nicest retirement parties I think I've ever been to. And to have been a part of it for all of us, I think should have been, certainly was for me, very special. The Johnsons, our honoree Susan and her husband both were thrilled. They were thrilled at the showing the plaques and resolutions and that sort of thing. It couldn't have happened last night without Caroline and Jeffrey. Caroline is probably one of the most meticulous organizers I've ever met. And she just gets it done, makes it look easy. And didn't come last night because she couldn't, as you just heard. But Jeffrey was here and he's sitting right here. If you didn't know him before last night, you know him now. Jeffrey makes an impression. He's a trooper and he got it done last night. So many anecdotes, good ones. If you had a drink last night, then you should shake Jerry Romsky's hand. Because Jerry Romsky.
And then have another drink.
It was, he was very gracious last night. I will just say it.
But John was a good man.
John is a good man, no question. All right, Sarah, are you going to read the roll before I?
Sure, why don't I do that? And then we have a few people on via Zoom from staff and bond counsel. So that way everyone will know who is on the line and for purposes of the record as well. We have our chair, Al Carney, Jerry Romsky, Beryl Snyder, Joan Sullivan, Janice McKinney, Wellington Chen, and Ken Evans are all present in the New York City office. We're still expecting Lisa Gomez. Absent today are members John Gardner, Adrian Swazerski, and Phyllis Morris. From DASNY staff, present in the New York City office, Ruben McDaniel, Paul Koopman, Nadine Fontaine, Kim Ellis, Portia Lee, Steve Curro, Ricardo Salomon, Dina Amodio, Jeffrey Gordon, Matt Bergen, Craig Schreivogel, Alex Sardine, and Amanda Nazario. Joining us remotely via Zoom, we have Caroline Griffin, Jenna Flinton, Steve Kozier, and Karen Ellinger from DASNY staff, as well as Deb Fasser. And then from outside counsel joining us, Melissa Bennett, Karen Kendrick Brown, Chris Reitzel, Virginia Wong, Seth Bryant, and Sonny Williams. We also have a member of the public joining us, and I believe that is it, Mr. Chair, so I will turn it back over to you.
Ms. Richards, thank you. Then let's start. The first agenda item, the minutes of the 7th September meeting. You've all had a chance to take a look at those minutes. Are there any recommendations or revisions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve? Thank you, Mr. Romsky. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Chen. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed, please? And are there any abstentions? Then the motion carries and the resolution to adopt the minutes is approved unanimously. The second agenda item is the Finance Committee report. Mr. Romsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met yesterday, actually live and in person, the first time in a while. It was very nice. We approved the meeting minutes from the September meeting of the Finance Committee. And then we advanced to that one resolution, which was the pit tender resolution. And we recommend we unanimously recommend that be approved at today's board meeting. And unless anyone has any questions or concerns, that'll conclude my report. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And Matt Bergen is here to walk us through that, the tender resolution. I like to call it. It's tender. Then we go to the adoption of documents. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 3 is the Rochester Institute of Technology transaction, the summary update. Melissa Bennett of Barclay Damon and Karen Kendrick Brown of Lewis Mundy will be presenting.
Please. Whoever's going to start.
Good morning. Pleasure to be before you this morning. As further detailed in our letter to the board, before you for consideration is the adoption of a new Rochester Institute of Technology bond resolution, authorizing the issuance of multiple series of bonds at one or more times, and the adoption of a series resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $120 million of Rochester Institute of Technology revenue bonds. The general resolution is a new resolution based on DASNY's new model resolution and constitutes the agreement between DASNY and the holders of the bonds issued under it, and contains the basic terms that apply to each series of bonds issued under it. The series resolution authorizes the issuance of up to $120 million aggregate principal amount of bonds in one or more series at one or more times, and delegates to authorized officers of DASNY the power, among others, to determine the final terms of the bonds, subject to certain limitations described in our letter, and authorizes the entry into a loan agreement or agreements and other customary transaction documents. The bonds will be special obligations of DASNY, payable solely from the revenues pledged to the bonds, which are primarily payments made under the applicable loan agreement, and the monies and investments held in funds and accounts established with respect to the series of bonds. And I'll now turn it over to my co-bond counsel, Karen Brown, to discuss the loan agreement.
Good morning, everyone. The loan agreement will require Rochester Institute of Technology to make payments in amounts and at times sufficient to make timely payments on the bonds. The loan agreement will be assigned to the trustee with limited reservation of rights to DASNY, including those with respect to the preservation of the tax-exempt status of the bonds, payment of DASNY fees, and indemnification. As mentioned, consistent with the DASNY financing guidelines for independent institutions, specific security, if any, for the university's obligations under the loan agreement, as well as any financial covenants, will be determined by the underwriter and the university based on current market conditions and practices. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there questions for bond counsel? Hearing none. There is a resolution. It is behind tab 3. And if I can get a motion to approve it, then I can request a second and we can get going.
I'll move.
Thank you very, very much, Beryl. Is there a second?
Second.
Joan, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? None. The motion is approved. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. President.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 4 is a transaction summary for the program tender. Matt Bergen, Virginia Wong of Dixon Peabody, and Sonny Williams will present this transaction. It's personal income tax revenue bond program and or sales tax revenue bond program tender. Matt.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. The board is being asked to authorize staff to enter into and execute the necessary documents to effectuate a tender of existing personal income tax revenue bonds and or sales tax revenue bonds on behalf of the state of New York in the amount of approximately $200 million. Through an invitation to tender, the state has an opportunity to use existing debt service prepayments to purchase certain outstanding PIT and or sales tax bonds from existing bondholders on terms economically advantageous to the state. After purchasing and then delivering these tendered bonds to the trustee for cancellation, the bonds would no longer be outstanding and ultimately be retired. And finally, the tender transaction will not require the issuance of any additional bonds. And now I'd like to hand the presentation over to Virginia and Sonny. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Before you for consideration is the adoption of a resolution authorizing DASNY to participate in a tender offer transaction for the benefit of the state of New York, acting by and through the Division of Budget. DOB has requested that DASNY offer to the holders of certain state personal income tax revenue bonds or state sales tax revenue bonds the option to tender their target bonds for purchase on terms that are economically advantageous to the state. The price to be paid for the tendered bonds will be funded from debt service payments made by DOB pursuant to the applicable financing documents. The pricing and related mechanics have not yet been finalized. DASNY will make the tender offer pursuant to one or more invitations to tender. The invitation can be rescinded if the desired economic benefit is not achievable. All target bonds that are tendered pursuant to this transaction will be canceled upon effectuation of the tender transaction. Sonny?
Thank you, Virginia. Good morning, everyone. So the resolution before you authorizes authorized officers of DASNY to cause to be done any and all acts, including the execution of appropriate documents deemed advisable in connection with the tender transaction. More specifically, the resolution authorizes the preparation and distribution of an invitation to tender, which is expected to include recent disclosure relating to the applicable program under which the target bonds were issued. The disclosure document is intended to provide holders of the target bonds with information necessary to evaluate their tender option. The resolution also authorizes DASNY to enter into a dealer-manager agreement with the dealer manager. The dealer-manager agreement is expected to be substantially similar to DASNY's standard form of bond purchase agreement. It is currently expected that the dealer manager will be B of A Securities, Inc. As stated earlier, no new bonds will be issued, and the resolution reflects that fact. Moreover, given that no bonds are being issued, there is not the typical not to exceed amount, but the tender transaction is expected to be approximately $200 million, with the final size depending on market conditions and bondholder response. That concludes our presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sonny. Are there questions for Matt, Virginia, or Sonny? Well, hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Thank you, Wellington. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? The resolution is passed unanimously. Thank you all. We move on now to the corporate governance report. Our first report as chairman, as chairperson.
I'll try to get it right.
A great meeting yesterday. Please.
Yesterday afternoon, we also had our first live governance committee meeting in years, and it was terrific. And it was my first time taking over for a person whose shoes are very hard to fill, John Johnson, but I will try. During this meeting, we undertook the annual review of the governance charter and principles, and there were no changes. The review is complete. Sarah, can you brief the board on actionable items?
Sure. Good morning again, everyone. So there are 3 items for the full board to consider this morning. The first is the mission statement of the board, including performance measures and performance metrics. We are required pursuant to the Public Authorities Law to review and approve those on an annual basis. So I will turn it over to the chair to call for a motion unless anyone has any questions or comments. Staff is not recommending any at this time.
And the committee is recommending approval in its current form. Are there any questions or comments? I think everyone's had a chance to review these. There being none, I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt the resolutions. Is there a motion? Thank you, Joan. A second? Thank you, Janice. There being a motion duly moved, I'd like to take a vote. Are all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The next is the disposition of real property. I think we need a resolution on that as well. Sarah, would you summarize that the changes, which there were none, to the guidelines pertaining to this disposition of certain property?
Correct, that's right. Staff is not recommending any changes, and the governance committee likewise is recommending no changes at this time. The board is required to review and approve these on an annual basis. Madam
Great.
Chair.
I'd like a motion to adopt the resolution. Thank you. And any second? Thank you, Lisa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
And I'm sorry, who moved that? I apologize, I didn't catch it. I know Lisa seconded.
Jerry.
Jerry, okay, thank you.
Okay. The next is that Sarah will summarize the changes made to the bylaws. It's section 3.7. In light of recent changes to the open meeting law regarding video conferencing. So we are going to put into actual formal form what we have been doing for the past 2.5 years. It's something that we all have very practical experience with. So Sarah, would you please summarize these for the board?
Sure, thank you. So as the chair said, there have been some changes to the open meetings law to set forth more specificity on the requirements for video conferencing. The current section 3.7 of the DASNY bylaws would therefore be replaced in its entirety. That current section speaks to telephonic meetings, which are no longer authorized at all. So for video conferencing, the board may gather at one or more locations that are open to the public and join together in a meeting through the use of video conferencing. That is what the open meetings law allows, and that is what the revisions to the DASNY bylaws will state. In addition to that, should a member need to participate from a private location not open to the public, such as their home, that would only be authorized in the event of extraordinary circumstances. Each board, including DASNY, can determine the extraordinary circumstances that would authorize such participation. We've talked about it internally, and the governance committee considered the circumstances that are outlined in the materials that you received. They include illness, disability, caregiving responsibilities, religious observance, adverse travel conditions, an election at which the member is eligible to vote for taking place on the same day as a meeting, and other unexpected or extraordinary circumstances as determined by the chair. So in essence, members are expected to attend physically at one or more, at one location that will be open to the public, most likely New York City DASNY office, the Albany DASNY office, and the Buffalo DASNY office. To the extent a member needs to participate from home for one of the reasons specified in the bylaws, that would also be allowable. And with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back to you for discussions and a motion.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you, Sarah, because I think you did an excellent job in articulating a very comprehensive list of situations where this may apply.
you.
So thank you. You worked very hard on this. Is there any discussion or any questions or comments? We all have had a chance to actually bring up those comments before, but are there anything additional? Then I'd like to call for a motion to approve the changes in the bylaws. Joan, thank you. Is there a second? Wellington, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is unanimously passed. One last thing the committee also did was we heard a presentation from Matt Moore, on the Director of Procurement, on the upcoming changes to the procurement guidelines. They're comprehensive, well thought out. We're not ready to bring it before the board quite yet, but that will be on the horizon. So thank you, Mr. President.
I might say that Matt Moore did a terrific job yesterday. It's very dense material, and you've got to pull pieces of it from different places.
He didn't just amend them, he actually rewrote all of them, putting them together in a logical way. So that took a lot of time and effort and real practical knowledge of how the organization works. So thank you, Matt. I don't think it's here yet. No,
There.
there. Okay.
Probably back procuring something.
Somewhere. Okay, anyway.
He is on the phone. He did enter the meeting by phone, so.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Matt. So, okay, that's it.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you very much. We're on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the president's report.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. This president's report is about all the good stuff that happened last month at DASNY with our employees. Last week was the statewide MWBE conference, very successful conference as always. We had an employee, Pam Legier, who's in our OPG group, opportunities group. And she was honored as one of the champions award recipients for MWBE and her work in the around the state. Was nominated and recognized. She's been with DASNY for over 20 years. Does a wonderful job in helping process some of our MWBE work. And this is really great to see her be honored there. Michael Clay, who's our co-head of procurement, was also an active participant in the conference and hosted on a couple of panels. So it was good to see DASNY employees as part of that. On Friday, this Friday, I'll be up in Albany, and we will have our Memorial Garden dedication. Some of you may know, but about a year and a half ago, kind of early in the pandemic, that's pre-pandemic, so about 2 years ago, we had an employee whose daughter had cancer and unfortunately passed away. And the employees gathered together and very supportive of his family, but also planted a tree in Charlie Fernandez, the young lady's honor. And that sparked the idea of getting a memorial garden. And so we now are dedicating a memorial garden to honor all employees who passed away during their service at DASNY. And we'll continue to honor those as we move forward. So it'll be a nice ceremony at 10 o'clock on Friday in Albany. If the weather's nice, come by and enjoy some coffee and just take a moment. I think it's very nice. The employees, this really is an employee-driven effort. Really the nice thing about DASNY employees that you might not see is, we have a very giving group. They often give time off for employees who need some time off. They can donate those to a bank. Typically when they have, an outreach for something, everybody contributes. And this is, really nice to see the employees. This Memorial Garden, I think, is just another indication of great work at DASNY. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the John Johnson Award last night, our dinner last night. It was great to honor John. Great to see Gerard and Paul, the two past executive directors, a couple of additional board members, but also just great to talk about the DASNY legacy. John does it better justice than someone coming off a page talking about 1944 when DASNY was formed to build dorms, large $42 million bond transaction that financed 29 dorms. Your portion doesn't even roll over for a $42 million bond transaction now. Whatever. But yeah, very nice. Again, appreciate everybody being there. And then in the, my mother always says, if you don't pat yourself on the back, no one will pat you on the back. This Thursday, I'm being honored by the Twin Rivers Council. The Boy Scouts are giving me their Citizen of the Year Award. So I'm very honored to do that. Yeah, so
That's
some
great.
of our DASNY family members will be up there and some friends. So it really was nice to be honored. It's an Albany area Boy Scout troop. So yes, we're looking forward to that. I'm not competitive, but we raised more money than anybody else has, so that's another good thing too, right? But yeah, very, very happy to do it. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
May I ask a question about Memorial Garden?
Certainly.
Will there be plaques or these are people who passed away during the pandemic?
No, not during the pandemic, just during their service at DAS.
I see.
So
Okay,
they
all right.
were actively employed at DAS, they passed away during their service. There will be a plaque honoring those.
Okay.
And then we have the tree honoring Charlie. And that's what a garden area.
Where's the garden?
It's out front to the left of yeah, if you're facing the building to the left. Yeah, outside, but they're very nicely done.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. The next agenda item, of course, is the, on tab 7, is the public finance report. Portia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the last board meeting, we closed the school district funding transaction. Just a brief monthly update. As I'm sure you all know, in an effort to combat inflation, the Fed continues to meet and raise rates. The last meeting they had in September, they raised rates by another 75 basis points. Total year-to-date volume for 2022 is approximately $297 billion. That's down about 16% from the volume last year. This week's supply is expected to be light at about 2.5 billion. Tax exempt bond yields were lower yesterday with both the 10-year and 30-year AAA MMD decreasing by 2 basis points to close at 3.16% and 3.74%. US government bond yields were higher yesterday with the 10-year yield increasing by 4 basis points to 3.93 and the 30-year treasury yield increasing by 4 basis points to 3.90. Municipal bond funds reported outflows last week, as they did for the week previous to that. Since the September 7th board meeting, rates have been climbing very steadily. 1-year MMD has increased by 63 basis points. The 10-year has increased by 44 basis points, and the 30-year has increased by 26 basis points. Likewise, on the Treasury side, on the same time period, 10-year Treasury yield has increased by 60 basis points, and the 30-year has increased by 41 basis points. Also included in the materials in the members' books are bond sale summaries, which include performance metrics. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Portia. Are there questions for Portia? Hearing none, we're going to move on to tab 8, which is the financial report. Kim.
Thank you.
You're off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As highlighted in the standing financial report, personal expenses are under projection primarily due to retirements and slower than expected recruitment. Non-personal expenses are slightly under projection as well. We didn't have any private debt issues in the month of August close, so year-to-date financings remain at $1 million through August. Percentage of direct hours charged to public client programs is slightly up at 95.5% against a budget of 93.1%. Update on year-end audit front for the fiscal 2022 audit. KPMG did complete their audit of the individual financial statements and issued a clean opinion on 16 individual financials. For a year-end 2023 audit, in connection, we will be implementing GASB 91, which is conduit debt, GASB 87 and 96, which relates to accounting for leases and IT services. Staff are working diligently to prepare for the implementations, which includes making the necessary system adjustments to remove the conduit debt from our year-end financial statements. It's my expectation that KPMG will be presenting their audit plan at next month's audit committee meeting. This will be the 4th year of their engagement, which allow for 3 years with 2 one-year extensions, subject to continuing determination that they're responsible vendor. Our DASNY procurement group is wrapping up its review of KPMG. And it is expected that they will get the continuing responsible vendor determination. Update on a couple system implementations. As you may recall, we previously implemented a new investment management system due to the sunset of our SunGard investment system. Our debt portfolio was also part of that system, and we are now moving to do a replacement for that. We currently use several disparate systems to model our debt structures, maintain debt outstanding, and optimize construction portfolios. The current systems we have in place are Unix software, SunGuard, Excel spreadsheets, and various database management tools, in addition to manual input processing. We migrated investment portion out of the system into Clearwater Analytics earlier this year. And for the debt portion, we looked at options for integrating the bond issuance process with the bond management process and identified a vendor which offers a suite of products that integrate among each other, eliminating several manual redundant processes and bringing all under one common system. So we're in the process of finalizing the contract, and we look to bring to the board next month approval of that contract at that meeting. On the JD Edwards front, I previously mentioned we have begun the process of looking to replace our financial management system. Chad Pirro, who has assumed the role in leading this effort, we issued an RFI, earlier this year, which yielded a response from several firms proposing 4 different softwares. We brought all 4 in to provide a demo of their broad functionality, and what we learned is that we're pretty far behind from a technology perspective. Staff seemed impressed with the modern technology that these new systems bring. So we're continuing to move forward with targeted demos in the coming months. And Chad has met with folks represented by every area of the organization that touches the system in an effort to develop a business requirement document that we will then use to pursue system selection and implementation. And as things progress, I will keep the board apprised along with key milestones and dates throughout the process. That concludes my report.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks very much. Are there questions for?
Karen? I just want to add something to Kim's report. She talked about DBC and some other software updates. During the pandemic, we put off some necessary but not critical updates to the building. And so you'll see over the next couple of months some additional work we're doing on the building. We're replacing the heating system in the front sidewall. We're going to do some work on the windows, boiler systems, and those types of things. So either you and I will be signing some things, or from time to time the board will have to approve some things. But we now are in all out of reserves. We had signed, but during the pandemic, we did not do any kind of non-necessary updates. That building is over 25 years old, and so we are beginning some pretty good maintenance projects and update projects. So the board know we are on top of that. And Jeff Arnold, kind of manages our building, will be leading that effort.
Any roof work?
I don't think I know roof work. Nope. Oh, okay. So yeah. So other than Paul's roof leaking over his head, we're all good. But we've maintained the critical functions, but it's time now to do some maintenance work.
Well, thank you for that addition. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, as the newest person, I'm sorry if it's something I don't know. Financial tech is moving very, very quickly in terms of development. Is there sort of a periodic review or opportunity that we take every, X years to sort of check in on things? It might be good to think about just
so
going
far
forward.
behind from a technology perspective now. We've had JD Edwards system longer than I've been at DASNY. I've been here 23 years. So we're really far behind in that respect on that technology. But as we started looking at new systems, we have learned that we are kind of behind the curve on.
Probably always will be. I mean, all of us,
Yes,
whatever our
we'll never
lives are.
be at cutting edge, but I think that as we look at new systems, we want to look at someone that kind of brings and updates technology so we don't get so far behind in the future.
Thank you, Kim. Other questions? Hearing none. Item 9 on the agenda is the construction report.
Thank you, Al. Start with SUNY. Just a couple of updates on a couple of capital projects. First, the New Albany project. This is a $42 million project consisting of the renovation of 2 low-rise residence halls as well as an infill fitness center that started in May. I was fortunate to visit the project last week. It's moving along very nicely. Progress in the areas of abatement, demolition, interior mock-up framing, and window replacement is ongoing, as well as a number of pre-construction tasks. I bumped into our lead contractor there, and feels like the project's on schedule, trying to finish that off for the fall of 2025 occupancy. Was also at New Pulse recently. This is the $43 million gut reno of Awasting Hall. We have begun working our way up through the building. There's a number of demo in the space asbestos work areas that have been completed. We also have the framing completed now for the new 5th floor. So we're putting an additional floor onto this res hall, as well as a new roof structure. We are progressing that at a good clip. We're hoping that the fall of 2023 is when we finish that one off. FIT's project, the $198 million 10-story building, moving along very nicely at this pace. We've got steel framing up through the 10th floor. We've got the concrete floor plates up through the 10th floor, beginning MEP work. We're through the 3rd floor on rough-in MEP systems. We're also implementing a new system there. A firm came to us and asked us if they could work with us on that project. And what the technology allows for is more accurate percent complete calculations at the end of every month, which will be reflected in the contractor's billings. So the contractor won't be overbilling us early in the project. It's a photography type solution where they go in, they photograph the building, they compare the photographs to the original contract documents, and out spits a percent complete. So it's pretty interesting, kind of cutting edge where we don't really like to be, but since they gave us a very attractive proposal to get in with DASNY and just try to get the system up and running, we went for that. So interesting system. Lastly, Alfred's Mackenzie Hall, phase 3B and C, well underway, waiting for a project schedule from our takeover contractor there. We're expecting that on October 19th, hoping for fall 2023 occupancy there. CUNY just continued heavy workload. I'll be at the $95 million Lehman School of Nursing tomorrow, meeting with our project team. Mike Stabulus and I just continue to work with their facility folks. And Ruben, Mike, and I will be meeting with community facility staff, the highest level, in a couple of weeks, just to talk about some changes to the program that they're looking for, as well as some changes we're looking for. So looking forward to that meeting. DOH Lab, the design build team continues to work on right sizing the building, trying to meet that project budget. The reprogramming effort should be completed by mid-November. OCFS, Office of Children and Family Services. DASNY is working on 2 projects, one in Suffolk County, one in Westchester County. The Suffolk project is a $40 million design build project, a 40-bed facility. We picked STV as our bridging consultant. So those bridging documents are currently being generated. And in Westchester, this is an $80 million facility, a design build again, 80-bed facility, standalone, 2 stories. We're working with Westchester today on finalizing the PMA for the project. And Molly Larkin, our Director of Upstate Design and Construction, and I actually met with OCFS and their commissioner about a month ago. They asked us for a proposal on 2 feasibility studies, one for the Goshen Secure Center located in Goshen, Orange County, and the second at Highland Residential Center located. Sorry.
If you observe yourself, Steve, that's okay.
That was my timer to complete it. I missed our schedule here. The other one is at Highland Residential Center located in Highland, Ulster County. Gozer, the September 2022 deadline has come and gone for that project portfolio. We still have a couple of outstanding projects we're working on, trying to get those finished up. CD recruitments, still a number of those underway. Engineers, architects, hard to find, project managers, field reps, and miscellaneous back office support staff. I said this last month, I have to say it again, we're going to come to the board probably next month with a PLA for a Rochester OMH project that we will seek approval for. More on that to come. And thank you, Ruben, for recognizing Pam and the work she does for the OPG group. That's all now.
Steve, I was careful not to introduce our new head of sustainability, so I knew you would, but since you didn't, could you please do that?
I actually did it last month, but I'll do it again. He has arrived. Eric McQuaid, he's our new director of sustainability, environmental programs and energy. He brings with him a number of years of energy experience, energy efficiency experience. He worked with GE's Naval Nuclear Lab. We're very happy to have him on board, and I've been introducing him around to the DASNY staff. And he's already jumped in on a number of CUNY meetings and OMH meetings. It's interesting, the most recent OMH meeting he sat in on, he was actually working for OMH as a consultant in that same meeting about 8 years ago. So now he's on the other side, but very happy to have him on board.
And one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is, is all of us follow Albany. The governor has a lot of sustainability initiatives that are moving forward. And we're kind of in an interesting position. Obviously, we take up our own building, but we also have a lot of clients that we consult with and help them as they try to fulfill their sustainability requirements. And you really need someone who could, bridge both the internal and external. I'm just, couldn't be happier with the recruitment. So just wondered.
Congratulations. The DASNY main building is it LEED Gold, I think, right?
Yes, yeah, it's there's a category of a renovation for an existing building, and it did get a
couple of years ago we did that, right?
Yeah, we did it probably 8 years ago.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Eight becomes a couple.
We have the plaque, I know that. We got the plaque.
Yeah, I'm getting younger.
Steve, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there questions for Steve? Well, I guess there have already been a few. Nadine, I know you and I have spoken in the last month. As I look at the agenda, you have has had something to do with everything we've talked about today. I just want to say that out loud so that everybody knows that even though you're not reporting, it's not because you don't have a lot of things to say. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you.
No offense to lawyers, but lawyers don't report. That's a good thing.
Your world would be a sadder place without lawyers.
Yes, it would.
The next regular meeting of the board is on November 9. We're going to have an audit committee meeting before that meeting. And so there will be a report. The auditors are going to meet with the audit committee and go over their review of the financial statement. We already have some indication of how well that's going. Thank you. With a little luck, unless
There's one thing on the logistics for next meeting. You just passed the bylaws today. So the Albany office will be the main location for the next meeting.
I didn't say that.
But we will have New York City open and Buffalo open for members who don't want to travel at all.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board? There being none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Mr. Romsky, thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. I'm sure there's nobody opposed and there are no abstentions. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And for those of you